Hey everybody, this is not the Tellman and Fellman show. This is Harris and Tellman. We are live streaming because we wanted this example to be legit. So we are doing an example of an interview for people learning the automatic audience system. Basically, this is one of the modules, one of the early chapters that we teach them to jump on and do an interview. We have a automatic audience interview outline and instructions, and it's pretty much like a Mad Lib, a fill in the blank type of thing with a bunch of questions. We're going to ask all the questions. They're instructed to, or you, or whoever's watching, you or they, if you're a student, you're instructed to just select 8 or so of the questions, or all 12 is fine. We're going to do all 12 so that you can hear what they sound like coming out. And also, if anyone is catching us live, probably not going to answer any of your questions. Until after, we will say,
Yeah,
hey,
if you guys have questions, you can totally write them into the comments, and we can address them either at the end of this or in the future. Yeah,
that's fine. Okay, cool. So, but anyway, it's going to seem like a real interview, but it's also going to seem like Tellman and I don't know each other, and we've known each other for 18 years. So,
yeah.
All right, and also for the students, I filled in all the blanks ahead of time so that I wouldn't be having to think on camera. So I recommend that as well. There's a couple places where you do have to think at the very end. So you'll see that. You'll see the smoke coming out. All right.
Awesome.
We ready?
We're ready.
All right. Hold on a second. Here we go. Wait. I don't know. I'm trying to do one of these things.
Good try. Good try.
Boo. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's interview. We're deep diving into the world of email marketing today. I'm thrilled to introduce you to somebody that's truly made a name for themselves in this space, a huge name for himself, Tellman Knudsen. Tellman is a list building expert, beyond expert, really. He's known for his outrageously creative and fun email marketing strategies, as well as his out-of-the-box thinking. So, what are we going to end up talking about today? He's helped over 250,000 paying clients and customers build email lists and launch their online dream businesses by building huge responsive audiences and email lists as well. Now, I said 250,000 paying clients and customers. That's absolutely insane. Today, they're here to share their incredible journey, insights. He's here to his incredible journey, insights, and expertise with us. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take, can't read that, looking to take your list building game to the next level, you're going to want to pay close attention to what Tellman has to say. So, without further ado, let's dive in and learn more about Tellman Knudsen and their story. Welcome, Tellman. Sorry I butchered that a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Harris.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. Is that all right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, great. Can you share a little bit about your background and what got you started in list building, email marketing?
Yeah. I'll try not to go into too much backstory, but I started my first business in college out of my dorm room, Tellman Salsa, like chips and salsa. And I bootstrapped it. And it was very, very small. We were making small batch salsa out of a food, a kitchen, and selling it at all the local or local to Vermont, New Hampshire health food stores and that kind of stuff. So those are kind of my early days of entrepreneurship. And that business, ultimately, I kept it going for about 5.5 years, but I just could never make any money with it. I was never able to make enough salsa to profit enough to really pay myself, right? Yeah. And so that was frustrating, but it was a product I really loved. I still really love it. I still make it. Sometimes I make it for my friends and they love it. But I couldn't at the time figure out how to make a successful business with it. I was, 19 and whatever. And so I went on to start a whole bunch of other businesses while I was working one or multiple jobs, and all sorts of different things, from landscaping. I tried selling didgeridoos and new age stores and like spirituality stores. And I tried, all these different things. And ultimately, I kept on failing over and over and over again, right? And during this time, I ended up becoming a hypnotherapist. I went and I got trained as a hypnotherapist after I finished college, and I started my own hypnosis business. And I finally got to the point where I was making money. I had a successful business. I was working 6 days a week, sometimes 7, hypnotizing clients one-on-one, mostly for weight loss and stress. And eventually, I was working really hard. I was working, 10 plus hour days, 6 days a week. And still, though I was able to buy things, I was not able to consistently get all my bills paid, like paying off my student loan, paying off my credit card debt, paying my living expenses, and all this stuff. Like, it was still basically living, the equivalent of paycheck to paycheck. I was almost spending all of the money that I was earning every week on living expenses and so on. I couldn't figure out how to get out of that.
As a full-time hypnotherapist.
As a full-time hypnotherapist in rural Vermont in my early 20s, right? With zero successful business experience and zero knowledge or understanding of how marketing worked, right? I tried reading business books. They were boring. I didn't know what to do about it. And so I started studying internet marketing. And technically my salsa business was still on its last legs when I first started studying the stuff. I was reading Sean Casey's Mining Gold on the Internet in college, which was an ebook. I think I had to buy it 3 times because I went through so many computers and they died, and I went back. And it was mostly about affiliate marketing and this kind of stuff. I didn't really figure out how I could apply it to what I wanted to do, which was either selling jars of salsa on the internet, or I was like, well, maybe hypnosis CDs would be cheaper to send in the mail than jars of salsa, for less shipping. So, and I could probably sell them for more than, $5. And so I was like, maybe a hypnosis CDs would be more profitable. And so I was studying this stuff, and I learned about information products at this point, and I decided to create the 5 keys to permanent fat loss with my old friend Kyle Battis, who was a nutritionist and personal training expert. And so we did. I did a hypnosis session on one CD, and he did a weight loss and nutrition session on another CD. I interviewed him, and it was cool, but we really didn't sell many copies. But that's how I started. Is I was trying to learn internet marketing to figure out how to sell the stuff that I was producing in my businesses on the internet from a rural kind of backwoods Vermont town where I lived, because I didn't want to move, and I wanted to break free from the local economy, right, and get some leverage. So for me, the big selling point was when I learned the idea that my income no longer had to be attached to my hourly wage, and there was a way that I could break free from that rat race and start making more money for the time that I was putting in, and not have my time be the limiter. And so that's why email marketing and list building, building a large responsive email list. An email list isn't the only kind of list you can build, but it's one of the better kinds. At that time, it really made the most sense. So yeah, I email marketing and list building came out of me wanting to grow my businesses online, and I started realizing pretty quickly that everybody that actually makes money in the long term online builds a large list, like every single person, every single time. And when I realized that, I was like, this is the thing that I need to focus on learning and getting good at.
Cool. So what was the biggest challenge that you had when you first started, and how did you overcome it?
Well,
we're just talking about the email list building side of your.
My biggest challenge was that I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have any of the technical skills. I didn't know how to put up a website. I didn't know how to do graphic design. I didn't know how to record or edit audio files. This was before the days of streaming video. I wasn't good at marketing yet. I didn't know how to write a headline. I didn't know how to build an opt-in page. I didn't know how to create a squeeze page. I didn't even know what those things were. I didn't know those words at this point. And so my biggest challenge was I didn't have the knowledge that I needed, and I didn't have the budget to pay for it. Like, there are definitely some marketing gurus that were out there that were offering fairly expensive types of training and coaching and seminars and classes. But I didn't have thousands and thousands of dollars to pour into something like that at that point. and my credit was shot from failing so many businesses. I was over 100 grand in debt, and so I didn't have the knowledge that I needed, and so or the skills. And so what I did was I assembled a team. I slowly met people. This is before Facebook existed, so it was like in online forums and through introductions and things like this. Before my first seminar, before I went to a conference, before anybody knew me, before I knew anyone, I was meeting people who seemed to be doing some things online. And like one of the early guys that I met was Patrick Chan. He introduced me to Joe Vitale. And I ended up meeting Joe Lavery.
Well, now Patrick Chan is in Asia, so this is you really getting out of your rural Vermont roots, right? So
well, we're online and we're
and
like
before everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
In
Sorry.
forums online, and forums are the only place to meet other people that you were interested in in the same topics. And so I don't know what forum I met Patrick on, but he was cool, and he was from Malaysia. Could just barely understand him at the time. His accent has gotten much easier to understand, but like I had a really hard time even understanding him when we like get on Skype or whatever and have conversations. And so he ended up introducing me to Joe Vitale. I created a product with Joe Vitale later on, and I found a bunch of guys. I found Joe Lavery, who had marketing experience and knowledge, and really is an expert at what he does. Far at the time, it was far beyond me and my marketing knowledge and expertise and ability. And I found a guy who was a blogger, and I found a guy who was an audio editor, and I found.
And you already had Kyle. You mentioned Kyle Battis.
Kyle came far later. Yeah,
Kyle
came later on because he was still working his personal training job full time and that kind of stuff at this point. And I ended up assembling a team of 6 guys plus me, so 7 total, who were all willing to work on percentage on our first big project, right? And that ended up being List Crusade. And so I intentionally went out and found the people who I thought, and so I was right in some cases and wrong on some cases, but who I thought had the skills and the ability and the knowledge that I felt that I needed in order to pull essentially an internet launch off, right? And it worked. Everybody earned a percentage for a time until a few people dropped out over time, and then a few people stuck around and went on salary after we started making some money and things like this. But I knew that I didn't have the skills. I knew that I didn't have the money to learn the skills at the time. And so instead, I brought a small group of people together who were willing to play ball and try something crazy.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then what point did you realize that you had something valuable to share with others? You did this List Crusade thing, but then when did you start like sharing your expertise with others?
Yeah, well, that was very interesting. It's interesting that we're doing an interview about list building right now because I did over 80 interviews about list building, right?
Uh-huh.
But I interviewed all of the biggest names in or in internet marketing at the time: Sean Casey, Joshua Shafran, the Nitro Marketing Boys like Matt Gill and Kevin Wilkie. I interviewed Mark Joyner. All these people. Interviewed Jay Abraham. He was like the headliner on our squeeze page. I also interviewed some personal development people: T. Harv Eker, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, all these guys that were like at the peak of their game. And what I found was that all of them had big email lists, and all of them were selling information products and or coaching of some sort. Like low ticket front end was an ebook for $47, and the high ticket on the back end was like a $2,000 home study course. That was kind of what we had back then.
Okay.
And so I interviewed all these people, and even the personal development people, though I interviewed them about their expertise, I also asked them about how they built their list, how they kept themselves motivated, how they stayed focused, how they avoided distraction, all these types of things.
So using the interviews, you kind of immediately felt that you had something valuable to share with others, because you were interviewing other people.
That's not how it worked. I didn't feel that way. I was interviewing other people, and I totally had the common feeling of imposter syndrome because I didn't have the expertise. I was interviewing people, right? But then something struck me after I had done like 20 interviews, which is I could report. Sorry, there's something in my eye. I could report back on what happened in these interviews or report back on what happened after we implemented the strategies that were taught in our interviews. And that was great because I didn't report back on the things that bombed, right? I just let those drop. I reported back on things that were successful. And what that did was twofold. One is it gave us a second chance at promoting whatever it was we were promoting for that interviewee, which we made affiliate commissions on. And the second thing was that it showed that me and my team were implementers and executors, and we're putting this stuff into action and having success with it, which caused people doing all the interviews and then putting the interviews that what we learned into action caused everyone on my list to start believing over time. I didn't know this was going to happen, because I interviewed all these experts. I was the least common denominator in the topic of email marketing and list building, interviewing all these people on the same basic topic. And after 100 interviews, people were like, "Oh, Tellman's the list building guy." Tellman knows. And then what happened was one day I was like a Friday afternoon, and I was like, man, I really need to make some money. And I threw up what I called a short copy top HTML sales letter. Back in the day, we were using one shopping cart for our shopping cart.
Yeah.
And they had this top HTML section where you could create like an HTML document in Dreamweaver, copy the code, paste the code in, and the code would show up above the order form on the shopping cart. And so we had a headline, bullets, call to action, guarantee, and what they were going to get. And in an afternoon, I created an outline for a course called My First List. And we put it up, and it was for a series of, it was for 3 phone calls, 3 bridge line conference calls, where I was going to teach the 9 laws of list building. And I pre-sold all of it. It was all pre-sold. And I made tens of thousands of dollars that weekend just promoting this one little course. What
do you mean by pre-sold? The course wasn't done yet.
None of it was done yet. There were all a series of phone calls that were going to, like webinars, except teleseminars, that were going to be done, a week and a half or 2 later. So I pre-sold the whole thing so that people could get on the calls live, and then they get the recordings and transcripts in addition. Because at this point, I was probably learning how to do teleseminars from Alex Mandossian, would be my guess. And because I took his teleseminar secrets course and learned how to sell at a higher level with teleseminars at that point. So basically my list was emailing me, asking me for a course on list building, and I finally decided to create it, and it sold. It was great.
So that's when you pretty much realized it. So what do you think your proudest accomplishment has been so far? You've been doing this for 17, 18 years?
My proudest accomplishment. Well, I don't know about what my proudest. I mean, what pops into my mind is Run Tellman Run, which was kind of an internet project, but it was a nonprofit that I was able to start and attempt and work on because I had so much money from my business projects, right? So it was a philanthropic thing. It was Run Tellman Run. I attempted to run across America barefoot, raising money for homeless youth, and we raised $280,000 that all went directly to homeless shelters. So that was incredible. And then
you use the internet to tell people about it. It is related.
It is related, though, and I did build a list for it, which was cool. But honestly, it was like pulling teeth trying to raise money for a nonprofit compared to it was like shooting fish in a barrel trying to make money on like selling courses on the internet. So it was much harder than I was expecting it to be to get people to do something good than it was to tempt people to
do something
selfish, right?
Yeah.
So that was an interesting lesson, and I don't know if it's a permanent lesson or the only way of looking at things, but that was my experience.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's shifted a bit
but I'll tell you a couple of the most successful things that I did that were really cool. Was I partnered up with Sean Casey, who's one of my mentors, one of the interviewers for List Crusade, or interviewees for List Crusade. And Sean is, I think, a little more than 10 years older than me, maybe a little more, and had a lot of experience online. And he agreed to a partnership because I had a big team at that point. And we launched the ultimate list building course of the time. It was called List Pros. It's a $2,000 course. We did a $3.2 million launch, or maybe it was a $3.6 million launch.
Over
And
3 million.
the cool part about that was that we did the world's first $1 million teleseminar, where we did over $1 million worth of revenue in a single call. In 63 minutes, we did a teleseminar and collected over $1 million in sales.
That's great.
And that was life-changing for me and everyone involved, like all the affiliates, all of the interviewees for List Pros, like the entire marketplace. It was a breaking the 4-minute mile, breaking the 5-minute mile, whatever, breaking the 4-minute mile kind of a thing. And so,
and now awesome. People have done that with webinars many times, certainly since
many times, yeah. But no one had done that before.
You hear like Matt Gill thrown around, $400,000 here and 500 there and 250 there, and so I'm sure, I don't know if Matt's ever said there was $1 million one of his, but I've certainly heard.
Oh, we certainly aren't the only ones now, but we were the first ones, and so that was a big win.
That's worth putting on your bio.
You know what we did is we actually turned around and we created a course called Secrets of the $1 Million Teleseminar that gives that entire teleseminar and the outline, which would not be FTC compliant these days, I might add. But yeah, it was cool. It was great.
Great. Well, what are some of the, let's just kind of, what are some of the most common mistakes or misconceptions that you see people making with list building?
Yeah, well, the first is that they don't build their list.
They don't do it.
They just don't focus on building their list. It's like, if you don't focus on building your list, where's your leverage going to come from? I don't have the answer to that. Maybe you do. If you do, write it in the comments and let us know. Building the list is the way to escape. Okay, building the list, at least in this business model, building your list and continually building your list and continually making it larger and more responsive, and these days more important than ever, pruning it and keeping it clean. Building your list and building your audience is the first and most important thing. And the way that people are usually screwing this up is, even if they do have an opt-in on their website, they don't have a squeeze page, they don't have a forced opt-in page, they don't have a page that requires you to put in your name and email and phone number these days in order to get more information and learn more. And I found that is the key, driving people to the homepage of your website, having people opt into your email list, and sending them along autoresponder sequence and frequently broadcasting them.
Having a lead magnet or an ethical bribe, whatever you want to call it,
is absolutely
most
key.
People to visit to sign up for your list.
Yep.
And then after that, you started to allude to they don't do the right thing on the thank you page, or
yeah. The only caveat that I have to this would be for like wildly successful business owners who aren't building their list on the front end, but who are selling something on the front end, and their something converts really well, and they're building a massive list of customers, which is even better. Okay, right. But it also takes a lot more skill, in terms of copywriting and offer creation and all this kind of stuff to pull that off.
Right.
So building your list is your primary focus on the front end, and then the second thing.
Yeah, I mean, people can choose to build to call it building. It's still building a list when it's a customer list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying, is if your focus is building a customer list instead of an opt-in list, and it's building a wildly successful business for you, that's great. But for most people, that only happens after they have experience building a free opt-in list first, right? Some people, so one way or the other, building your list on the front end of your business is the most important thing. And the second thing that people screw up is they simply don't mail their list often enough. Whether it's, and this is still the case, this has not changed. Whether you're talking about a broadcast strategy, an autoresponder sequence, drip strategy, or a hybrid of the two, at the end of the day, the biggest problem that list builders make is they don't email their list enough due to inconsistency and laziness and or fear of rejection and fear of annoying or bothering people too much. And that's just, I mean, your list is going to slowly die over time if you don't mail it and take care of it. And mailing it and communicating with it is taking care of it. Like if you don't send email to your list, it's like not watering your plants and wondering why they die. Like no communication with your list, your list is going to die and they're going to forget who you are entirely.
Right. So, I think one of my favorite questions is if somebody was just starting out today, let's just stick to 3 pieces of advice that you'd give them.
Yeah. Number one is, I would say, if you're just starting out today, and you don't have like $100,000 to tide you over for the year while you're figuring all this out and to pay for your advertising expenses and all this kind of stuff, assuming you're on a low budget, you have more time available than you do excess cash, which is the case for many people who are starting online. Is I would say once you choose your niche and your topic, create some sort of content every day for your audience and your people. And whether that's a live stream or some sort of incredible written piece of content, or interestingly enough, these days now more than ever, your content can come in the form of community interaction. And choose one or another community platform, whether it's Facebook groups or school or something else, and get really, really, really good at building your community in there and building relationships with the people that are in your community. That does, in my opinion, count as content because there are so many different forms. But at the end of the day, it's you these days. It's almost always video or written. And the reason I'm not leaving audio, the reason I'm leaving audio out is because these days you might as well record a video if you're going to record an audio anyway, and then turn it into a podcast.
Okay,
right?
So 1, do daily content.
Daily content, number 1. Number 2 is simply mail your list every day. Okay, whether it's in an autoresponder sequence or a broadcast or both, mail your list every day. And I'm saying that's the ideal, knowing full well most people aren't going to follow through on it, right? Unless you're already doing it and you've already seen the light, you're probably not going to mail your list every day. I recommend that you stay in touch with your list every single day. And the more you stay in touch with them, as a general rule, the more they're going to buy or they're going to fall off. And that's totally okay. But you can't expect people to buy from you if you're not communicating with them. And number 3, I would say is, by the way, when I say create content every day, why are you creating content every day? The reason is because it's going to generate traffic. Okay, it's going to both, and if you do it right, it's not only going to generate traffic, which is people who go to your website and then opt into your email list, but it's also a piece of content that you can share with your email list in many cases, which gives you a reason to mail them in the first place, right? So it often serves a dual purpose. Maybe you need to create 2 pieces of content some days because one is meant for one place, one is meant for another place, and that's perfectly fine. The third, okay, so create content every day, email your list more often, and the third is honestly, it's send more new offers to your list. Okay, either create new offers more often, which is ideal, or send new affiliate offers to test them out to your list so you can at least learn, is my list going to buy this type of a thing? Is my list going to respond to this type of marketing? I like this. Does my list like this? Try it. See what you can find out.
Are you saying to send an offer every day, or is it a mix of offer and content?
I'm a big fan of one way or the other sending an offer out every day, even if it's in the PS of your email,
Okay.
right? Just because you create a piece of content and you send it out to your list doesn't mean there can't be a pitch in the email somewhere.
Sure.
I mean, if you want to know whether or not you should send out an offer every day, all you need to do is ask yourself, do I want my business to make money every day? If you don't send out an offer, it's the equivalent of not opening the doors for your business that day. Okay?
Right.
It really is. And people might say, what about my autoresponder sequence? It's fine if you have a like 3-year-long autoresponder sequence or however long. But the point is stay in very frequent contact with your subscribers, with your fans, with your audience, with your list, knowing that most of them aren't going to open most of your emails most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's the big thing, is there are very few people that are going to open all your emails, and if they are, they love them.
Right.
Right, which is great. No.
Great. Well, that brings me to the question of how do you think the landscape has changed since you first started, and where do you see it heading?
Yeah, it's actually changed enormously. It's changed in a big way. I was actually thinking about this on my run this morning. It's kind of an 80-20. About 80% of email marketing and list building is the same. About 20% has changed. However, the 20% has made 80% of the impact over like businesses that are thriving and businesses that are crashing and burning now that once were successful. The way that I used to do emailing no longer works. It used to. I held on to it like for dear God for a long time, and then my model broke. It stopped working. And so the big thing that's changed right now is there are a lot more emailers than there used to be. There are more spammers than ever, and there are more people that are engaging in either unethical or just unclean, inefficient that way email practices. They might not be unethical people, but they're running a messy email list. And what this means is that email deliverability is much more challenging and difficult than it used to be. There are a lot more there are a lot more steps now that you need to understand to set up an email list and to run it in a clean way. The biggest part of that has to do with segmentation and pruning, where you need to cut people off your list at a certain point and not keep emailing them. So this is all very, very important stuff. And that's just kind of the name of the game.
So that's changed a lot in the last 15, 16 years. And really it's changed, like the tipping points happened in the last, couple years?
Yeah, it really has. It really has.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a little embarrassing, but Harris, can you just buy me a couple minutes? Someone's just ringing my doorbell.
Okay, pause it. Can you pause? Oh, we can't pause.
We're live streaming, so I'm going to remove myself from the stage.
That's horrible. I'm going to pee my pants if I got to talk myself. Somebody is at Tellman's door right now. I don't know why he completely went away. I'm not actually. I swear I'm interviewing somebody right now. So everybody, let's see if anybody's watching on my Facebook. I'm going to go to my Facebook right now and see if anyone has any questions for us. Let's see here. We're going to go. This sort of thing can happen. Oh, I can hear myself talk. There we go. And so I don't know. Let's see. If I was interviewing somebody that had to leave.
I'm back.
I do. Oh,
it's okay. No, this is great. This is a great for our example interview because this totally happens, right?
Sure.
I haven't been interrupted like this in any of our 40+ Tellman and Fellman show things, but
right.
Anyway, it's all good. It's all good. Whoever was there left, so that's fine.
So yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and continue. What book? One thing, one answer. What book, resource, or person has influenced you the most?
I guess I'm going to have to say Mark Joyner.
Really?
We haven't interviewed him for our show yet, but man, I did so many teleseminars with that guy. We promoted so many things and came up with so many various cool promotions to do for different things. Mark was one of the early pioneers of internet marketing. He sold the first ebook online. He came up with the first version of the ad tracking pixel. You know what I mean? Before it was a thing.
I know his books about marketing are some of the better ones.
Yeah, they're really good. So
Memorable.
back in the day,
Irresistible Offer, I think, is still applicable today. I mean, it might be done differently, but
it's interesting because I think of that as one of his new books. It's I mean, which isn't really true, but like back in the day, the Confidential Internet Intelligence Manuscript, Volume 1, because he was in intelligence in the military, right? And there's a lot of military thinking in his background, and so the Confidential Internet Intelligence Manuscript, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and then Mind Control Marketing, like gold. Like really, really good stuff. I should reread those actually, and we should interview Mark soon, hopefully.
yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, yeah. Mark Joyner was incredibly influential on my thinking at an early stage.
Now, Tellman, I know you at the beginning of this, you told me you only had about 45 minutes. So let me just go ahead and ask the final questions here. First of all, I think I know the answer to this if I've been paying attention. Do you have any daily habits or practices that contribute to your success?
Some, and I mean, I'm trying to get better at being consistent in my life, but it's a lifelong struggle. Like being
I
consistent.
thought your answer was going to be, I email my list every day.
Yeah, well, I do most days, right? Like I do most days. Now, I don't every single day, every single time, but most of the time I email on my list at least once a day. I think that it's incredibly important to stay healthy and to exercise most days. I'm a lifelong long distance runner, hopefully a lifelong long distance runner. Have been running over 30 years now. And like it keeps me alive. You know, I get my best ideas while I'm running. It helps me feel good, you know, all the good things. And the other thing that I screwed up for quite a few years that I learned from is no matter how successful you forget, no matter how successful you become, okay, don't let, like, if you end up making a ton of money and traveling all around the world and like all this stuff, don't forget about your local friendships and relationships, your local community, because as successful as you become, you will become less successful several times over the course of your career. It's an up and down kind of a thing. And if you don't keep your community alive, it gets very lonely. And so, like, I grew up in a small town. I live in a different small town, and I have lots of artists and creatives as friends here. And when I made my first $1 million and like built my company up to, multi-million-dollar level, I got very bored hanging out with my old local friends, was my attitude, and I kind of let the relationships wither. And then later on, after I made a ton of money, lost a ton of money, got divorced, all this stuff, I found myself very lonely and lacking in genuine friendship outside of just the business world. And so for the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, I've really been putting a lot of effort into my local community and my local friendships, and having a balance between what I'm doing with business and what I'm doing, because I have kids and we have friends of the family that we've been friends with for years, all this kind of stuff. And so I find like keeping your local community and local friendships alive for me is it's just a really, really important piece to the puzzle in long-term happiness.
Well, I don't have that. I've moved all over the place, and I do feel a little lonely having just moved to near London and not really knowing anybody. So, but I do have my online friends and my online community that I also didn't nurture very well, and I'm having to reconnect with. So I do understand that. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Automatic Audience. This is a product that you recently created with some guy named Harris Fellman. What motivated you guys to create Automatic Audience, and how does it address the problems that people are facing today?
Yeah, well, so many years ago, I created a course called The Perpetual Marketing Machine, and it taught people how to do virtual summits, to build a giant list, a giant responsive list. And it just so happens that Harris Fellman followed my model and was one of my most successful students. Built a giant list, made well over $187,000, and Harris and I remained friends for many years, and we went our separate ways. He went on to do his own thing. I went on to do my own thing. But all of our businesses, both of our businesses, were email driven and list building driven. And looking back over the years of my own success in the markets and the niches that I've gone into, and looking at the real, like, tangible successes that my students over the years have achieved, all of them that have been the most successful have one thing in common, and they all did a virtual summit. And my old training got way outdated. I mean, it was super old. It was done before webinars even existed, before streaming video existed, before social media existed. And so Automatic Audience teaches how to do a modern virtual webinar summit to build a giant, profitable, responsive audience and email list. And Harris and I teamed up to create it together because we thought it would be fun to create a product and to launch something together. I don't know if it's been fun. It's been a lot of hard work. But that is fun, you know. I mean, but we decided to create together because we both saw how big an impact virtual summits had on us and many of our peers and colleagues. And I saw it with my students. And virtual summits are more significant. They're happening more often. They're often bigger than they've ever been in the past. So it's a model. It's one of the very few models that has evolved over time and improved, and has stood the test of time. And so since I basically invented the model, I thought it'd be a really good time to bring it back and teach people how to do this the right way.
Well, it'd be cool if we could get Harris on an interview sometime. Maybe you can connect me to him. Anyway, now just a little sidebar for the students that are listening. I'm going to skip question 11 because he kind of answered it, which was, can you walk us through how the product works and why it's different from anything else out there? So I'm purposely not asking a question that he answered from within the first one.
Okay.
All right. So for those, so finally, back to our interview. For those listening who want to take the next step, how could they get started with Automatic Audience?
Yeah, well, so I used to charge $4,000, and we sold thousands of copies for this training, and now it is much less expensive. You literally can get the entire training for, I'm not going to tell you how much, but what you can do is you can go to automaticaudience.net, and we have an extraordinary sales letter for you there that explains all the details. And your jaw is probably going to drop when you see the price. It's outrageously affordable because we wanted to really make this available to anyone, especially now that webinars are more accessible in every industry to anybody. So if you're serious about building a following online and building an audience, and you are ready, willing, and able to embrace the idea of doing a webinar series in order to make that happen with a bunch of other experts, then this is the model for you, unquestionably. It works. Like, you know, Harris, you and I talked before we launched this. We were like, well, you know, what's the biggest? People always ask, you know, if you had to start all over again, knowing what you know now in a totally new niche or market, and you would know, no one know who you were, you had no resources, blah, blah, what would you do? And the answer is, I already did this 4 separate times, and I did it with a virtual summit. You know, that's why we're teaching this. That's the reason we're teaching
it. It is how I got started, basically. I mean,
right.
I did a couple little things, different things first, but man, this has been a really great conversation. I hope you found as much value. I hope that you, the audience, found as much value in Tellman's insights as I did. You know, from basically being sure to prune your list, mailing it every day. We've just learned a bunch about what it takes to succeed in list building. But here is the really exciting part. If you're ready to take the next step and implement everything that we've discussed today, Tellman has created something special just for you guys. Like he mentioned, automaticaudience.net is designed to help you build a huge, responsive, and profitable audience and email list, which is what we're talking about, in 90 days or less. Okay, it's the perfect solution for anybody who's ready to launch or scale their business online with email, especially, but also can build other audiences as well with it. Super powerful in that way. All you have to do is go to automaticaudience.net, grab what's called the Automatic Audience virtual summit system. It's going to teach you how to do virtual summits the right way. I'm getting off script a little bit, sorry. Trust me, you don't want to miss this opportunity to work with Tellman and learn how to build a big responsive list in 90 days or less. Thank you again, Tellman, for sharing your wisdom with us, and thanks for the offer on automatic audience. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. Until next time, goodbye.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks for the interview, Harris. Thank you guys for watching, and hope to see you in the members area. Over and out.
Bye.